Hello all, my name's David Dark. I'm Operations Director at Atomic Smash. We're a WordPress and WooCommerce specialist. We actually work in a very particular way with our clients. Our actual ongoing relationships with our clients, sometimes we're actually working 5, 10, 15 days a month to continually iterate and change and update how their websites work and their platforms work. Having those sort of long-term relationships that involve a lot of communication, we need a supportive team, and actually a team that feels supported to allow that. It's a very different relationship when you're doing a project for 2-3 months and then you're sort of letting go of the project and someone else taking over. When you're owning a relationship and speaking, communicating with clients for that amount of time, you really need to feel supported and actually need to have a happy team. It's a real key part to that. Otherwise, those long-term relationships, become quite difficult. It's actually our 11th birthday in the next couple of weeks. When we first started, this is actually a picture of my business partner Piers. I'm taking the photo. Actually, Instagram was very, very young, and in general, we just didn't take many photos. This is the best one we've got at the time. We've got a lot more photos now, but I wish we'd taken more at the time. But this is actually in Spike Design, in Spike Island. It's a business incubator, which was really valuable to us. It really helped us get answers to very particular questions involving sort of actual business-based questions. Some of them about how to grow, all those sort of things were really useful, and even some really basic fundamentals like accounting questions we got answered. It was a really supportive place as well. There's a really good community of people co-working there or using the space or using the business incubator as well. So it was very good even from a social aspect. So it was an amazing place to start a business and to sort of get going. At a point now where there's 17 of us, there's actually only 15 people in this photo. It's incredibly difficult to get 17 people onto Zoom at once, but just from a scheduling perspective. But a lot has changed basically in that time, and shifting from just being 2 people to 17, so hopefully soon to be 18 as well. A lot has changed. When you start a business, it might sound obvious, but you really do wear a number of different hats. And when I first started with Piers, my business partner, it was a case I was building the websites, he was designing the websites, also doing a million other jobs around accounting, just business stuff, things that had to get done while trying to deliver a lot of work. As the team has grown and we've been able to sort of flesh out different areas of the business and actual focus, get people focused to do different roles. My day-to-day development has dropped way down. I'm no longer building websites. I transitioned more into helping clients and actually helping them not necessarily project manage, but more of a client relationship perspective. I'm now at the point now where I'm not really handling many clients. I'm now looking inward at the business. As an operations director, I really just trying to make processes run more smoothly, trying to just in general, just improve how the business works. All businesses go through growing pains. So for us, it's just a case of if we improve process internally, it just makes everything more smoother as we grow. Again, there's another obvious thing, but the pandemic brought so much change, and probably everyone on the call knows there's so much change. But if I explain the Atomic Smash perspective, and especially my perspective of what the pandemic did, we were from day one we started, we were always sort of based in a physical space, whether it was Spike Island or our current studio based in Temple Studios, right by Temple Meads in Bristol. We've always been based in a physical space. So overnight, we went from having a physical space to all being remote. Most of our employees are in and around Bristol, so their commutes weren't huge, but that meant different things. People dropped their commutes, which was amazing for them. It's less time, less money they had to spend for those sort of things, and there were some good elements to it, and we kind of realized really quickly that people's quality of work was completely maintained. There's no problems or anything without issues with how people were working or the quality of work. Everything was still really high standard. But I think the biggest thing and biggest fear for us, and probably for me actually, was more around the sort of chance that we kind of lose the soul of the business, and we had a really good sort of camaraderie in the studio. We'd able to go out for drinks after work, on Fridays, and all those sort of things. All of that stuff got lost really quickly, and you can't emulate that stuff over Zoom. Having Zoom film nights and Zoom quizzes become, not feasible after a year. So it's just, from our perspective, we really wanted to keep the soul in business and keep people sort of understand, what Atomic Smash, what we wanted to do with the business as it grows. To kind of help with that process, we actually went through a branding exercise. We actually tried to rebrand ourselves. Actually, in even the previous year, it is actually a really difficult task, and doing it internally, sometimes the questions you ask yourselves are probably the right ones. The sort of things you produce are very much in the sort of wheelhouse of the stuff you're producing now. It's very hard to think outside the box when you're dealing with yourself. It's a way more challenge. So we actually had to ask for assistance. We actually got the amazing people at Supple Studio in Bath to help us out with a complete rebrand. And a part of that process was, this visual aspect, and we actually, loads of thoughts about how we wanted to show ourselves visually, but we actually did a whole series of things, actually asking our clients what they thought of us, how we worked, how they thought of our team. A lot of these questions were done, were pointed directly at our clients, but not by us. These questions weren't coming directly from us; they were coming from an external party, which made that really valuable, because the answers were way more honest. They felt more likely to give an honest answer if it wasn't me or peers asking those questions directly, because we weren't necessarily going to be offended if it's external. So that's a real key part, is getting help and having the curiosity to actually ask for help at this point was key for us. We actually went, like I said, we had a bit of a visual change. These have been our logos over the years, but almost having a new logo is, some people consider that's the part of like branding is getting a new logo, getting a new look and feel. But for me, this is, it's important, but it's almost like the least important part of the exercise. For us, it was about company values, and these things have always been in Atomic Smash. We've always had these sort of values. I'll go through them in a second, kind of what they mean to us. But the actual real part of the branding exercise that was valuable to us was actually getting these things written down. It's distilling them. That's how I always like to think about them. We just took what was there and just wrote them down. It made them clearer and made the staff actually be able to sort of latch onto them, and we can talk about these values in everything that we do. When we're talking about how we work with other agencies or how we work with our clients, these values sort of go throughout everything that we do. I'll just go through quickly. So the idea of change is good. We really like the idea of, if something's not working, it's time to improve it. Really not be worried about if you change something, what effects it's going to have. Just let's think about how we can actually improve things and not held back in and sort of sit in a rut. Change is always good. Client first. This is, being a WordPress and WooCommerce agency, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of other WordPress agencies. So how do you improve beyond the stuff you're delivering? We're obviously delivering really good work, but it's the level of communication, it's the client services, it's all those sort of soft skills that we really try and improve on and shine on. Having that level of communication and hand holding and confidence with our clients, that's what we really want to, and that's where we sort of shine in that regard. Built on trust, again, that really links into clients, but that's trust. We hope our staff trust us in what we're saying, as business leaders, and we want our clients to trust when we say something is difficult. We need X amount of time to research it, to do this. If we say something's going to take 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, there's a reason for that. We haven't just plucked a number out of thin air. There is a reason, and we have this sort of really good rapport and trust with our clients. And I guess the real one that we're really focused on now, especially with this talk anyway, is just a supportive team. And having a supportive team is, that means a lot. And supportive team is very particularly worded, because it's not just having a happy team or just people, or just, I don't know, just your happy team is probably a good alternative. But a supportive team means that your team is confident and comfortable enough in the work they're doing to support others in their day-to-day. And that's almost as important as just having as a happy team, because unless they're feeling confident, it's very difficult to help someone else if you don't feel supported or even just comfortable in the stuff you're doing. So we actually started to think about, in building a supportive team, we needed to reinforce our company culture and actually start working through the getting those values distilled and making sure everyone was up to date and just clear about those things. And reinforcing it actually meant a load of different things. So we started to invest in some rock solid focused business coaching. I say invest, there was money involved, we actually paid someone, but the investment is not necessarily about the money, it's about the time and the effort and the commitment it takes to do really thorough business coaching. It's very time consuming, and it's all encompassing. Basically, you're doing things like setting goals, you're answering very difficult questions, you're basically showing everything and almost revealing some of your previous decisions you've made to get to where you are. And some of that stuff is very difficult, very challenging. So when you go through that process, it is a real investment of energy more than anything. But yeah, we went through that as a process, and for us, it was invaluable. The real key thing that we sort of took from that was these first three things immediately. And that was actually from only doing starting our business coaching. We kind of identified quickly some things we can improve on, again, to help support a team and that company value. We've always had one-to-ones, and if people aren't clear what one-to-ones are, just make sure 100%. The idea of one-to-one is, time for an employee to talk to someone in the leadership team, or just someone who's just managing their workflow, able to talk to them in a particular way. It does mean different things to other people. It can mean talking about roles and responsibilities, it can mean about airing issues, it can mean about just talking about their current workflow, it could talk about goals and things they're trying to get to. But for us, we've always had one-to-ones at some level. When we first started, they weren't particularly consistent. They might have been every 4 months. They'd be almost just like general chats. They weren't particularly structured, and that was something we had to improve pretty quickly. So we made them more consistent. The sort of questions we ask in those sessions was a lot more structured, and the actual things, the topics we talk about was more structured. But the real thing was the consistency and when they happened. So now they're fixed every 6 weeks. That felt really good for us. 6 weeks wasn't too soon, wasn't too far. We did play around with different time frames, but 6 weeks is a really good time frame for us, and as a team that works really well, and it's in the calendar, it's locked in, and it happens every 6 weeks. So that's really important as well, that when someone's got an issue, they know that obviously they can talk to me directly straight away, but they know they've got time in the next X amount of weeks that they can bring up something in a sort of safe environment, and that's not going to be distracting to what they're currently doing now. And it's giving an opportunity to make sure voices are heard. That's a real key thing. We started to track something called EPNS, so Employer Net Promoter Score. So this is a bit of a challenging one, because it's very difficult to track someone's happiness. Actually being able to score that and actually have something you can work with and work on and improve is very difficult. Happiness is kind of ethereal. It's can be directly affected by external factors. A pandemic can completely skew someone's happiness and day-to-day experience. You go from being exceptionally happy to, struggling. It's a real key thing that happiness is quite hard to track. So it also just anything external. It doesn't have to be as big as a pandemic. External things in people's lives can really, outside of work, that's the key part, can really affect people's happiness. So rethinking about tracking that sort of thing is more around a net promoter score is how likely someone is to recommend you. So an employee net promoter score really is around, how likely are one of our employees going to recommend working for Atomic Smash. For us, that's a real nice metric and value to track. It's in line with happiness, and again, it's more around they feel supported, they feel content in their role they're doing, they feel that they're doing good work. It's different to happiness, but it's still incredibly valuable, and it's a great metric to track as you go through your day-to-day, really. We actually, just to go back, we never tracked anything like that before. We just had a kind of finger in the air, rough, are you doing okay, sort of thing in our one-to-ones. So actually to track these sort of things was very, very important for us. I'll actually talk about how we started tracking that in a minute. There's a particular tool, but I'll talk about it in a minute. again, leaping into that tool, we actually created different paths for feedback. We always say that it's very easy to just grab me, it's just grab me or peers. You just tell us if there's a problem. But actually giving constructive feedback is incredibly tough to hear, as an employer, but it's actually really, really tough to give. So if you're an employee, actually being able to say there's something wrong is very, very difficult. It's hard, and especially when you're in a small team and you almost have like a personal relationship with a lot of your stuff. If there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in a business, it might be a bit easier, but small teams, this is a real challenge, and being able to give tough feedback is incredibly difficult. So we had to kind of work out a way of making that process a bit easier. And again, we needed something to help. This is almost a consistent theme I want to really get across, is that, asking for help is a key part to how we've changed and evolved. So to actually help with that process, we actually started using a piece of software called Office Vibe. It's a cloud-based piece of software. It helps us track our one-to-ones and schedule them, and almost give awareness to when they're going to happen. It allows for notes to be taken before a one-to-one. So if there's an issue that's upcoming, myself or anyone handling the one-to-ones and anyone in the one-to-ones can actually add notes before, which makes it a really good place to just store your thoughts if something happens that isn't urgent enough to bring up straight away. It's a nice way to archive it, and you both see, that's the key part, you're both seeing these notes and you're able to prepare if you need to. You can track goals. That's something we're really working on in the next year or so, is how we're tracking people's goals and they have in their careers, and how they're improving and evolving internally. And the minute we're working on how we do that, but it's really good. It has a really good side of the software to basically track those goals and make things are getting done, and almost just even do simple things like reminders and setting granular goals to get to that bigger goal. You can also run internal surveys, which is actually really, really handy, and you can make them anonymous or non-anonymous, whatever the word is, non-anonymous. And that's super valuable as well. So actually being able to do those things and ask particular questions is valuable. I'll go to an example on those in a minute. So the way the Office Vibe works is you can obviously have the one-to-ones, you have direct communication, you have direct, a communication path to that person. But what it also does in the background, it actually asks some really valuable questions. And these come through, this might look like a list that people don't get presented, or employees don't get presented these on a list. What will happen is one of these questions will be sent via an email, and there's almost just a number of buttons you can click. So 1 to 5, if you approve, disapprove. You might actually have the opportunity to actually type a comment, for example. They're usually coming in a one-to-one. You might get a collection of maybe 2 or 3 questions, but the important thing is it's just scatterfied, random questions that come in a slow cadence, but over the consistently, they're happening. You maybe get one of these once a week, maybe twice a week, over a whole year. So in that sort of time frame, you can really bring and ask a lot of questions to a lot of people and really get a feel for the business. You can also, the more staff you have, the more questions you can answer, the more valuable data you're going to get. We really feel with a team of 17 that we can get some really valuable data from it. If you've got a team of 5, it's a bit more, I guess it's a bit more challenging, and a smaller team making things anonymous is a bit harder. As your team grows, it's a lot easier to make things more anonymous, and especially these questions, a lot of it is completely anonymous because they're 1 to 5 answers or very simple answers, not direct comments, even though you can sometimes get direct comments. But that anonymity is a real key part to getting real truthful feedback. So yeah, just go some of these questions. A really pointed question like, am I proud of the value we create as an organization? That's a really pointed question, and if I was to ask that in someone's one-to-one, I can almost guarantee the answer would be yes, because I'm asking it. But you're way more likely to get a truthful answer if it's directed in an anonymous way. This is actually, all of those metrics, all that data is then put into the dashboard is actually from our dashboard. I'm incredibly proud of being able to have quite a high score for our team, and I really consider we do have a happy working team. And there's always there's always going to be challenges, there's always going to be sticking points, but as a general, our team is, I hope they feel super supported, and they're invested in the company culture. That's a real key part. But all of those questions are basically then fed into a dashboard, which is super easy to track and can highlight if there are problems. There have been problems which we've been able to tackle on an individual basis. If you are sort of hitting a problem, if there's a metric that's not particularly working very well, let's say it was, I'd say personal growth, for example. I've just plucked that from that screenshot. You can actually set up a very targeted questionnaire if you're feeling you're not getting the answers you want. So a lot of this stuff is pre-made for you, which is actually incredibly useful. Thinking these questions, obviously you can Google them, but the fact that all this stuff is pre-made, pre-built is amazing. You can tailor them if you need to, but that's a really good resource, especially if you're not sure of the questions to ask. So this is an example of improving recognition in your business. So this is, well, not necessarily improving recognition, but what is recognition? What does it mean to you now in the current business? So asking questions like, is receiving recognition important to you? Those, again, these are very pointed questions, which are very difficult to answer on a one-to-one basis. These surveys, like I said before, can be sent out anonymously or with email addresses attached, but I think we get most value when they're anonymous. So even just initially asking for help from our coach and being curious enough to start working through and improving things, we were able to do 3 things pretty quickly off the back of that initial sort of coaching periods. And like I said before, there's a big investment in time and effort, but being able to reap rewards quickly has been amazing for us in coaching and getting external eyes on our business. External anonymous opinions are always, in my mind, the most valuable. A lot of those things I've showed previously, obviously, there's lots of metrics, there's lots of hidden answers, but actually during our one-to-one process, there was some really nice feedback. So these sort of bits of feedback weren't necessarily anonymous, they were direct, but they were very clear, and most all the time is around actually time. So even just go through here, more time for collaboration. We want L&D time. We have L&D time, sorry, but I'm too busy to actually make time for it. We always want to keep learning. It's challenging to handle support issues when we have work scheduled. A lot of these things is around scheduling, is around time, is around how we do work. So the real key part was, the thing we wanted to just and work through to try and improve. If time and time allocation was always going to be a sticking point, let's see how we can improve it. So again, this would not have come from feedback if we hadn't asked these questions, if we hadn't had the curiosity to actually think about what our staff are having issues with and just plowed on, just kept hammering out work. It wouldn't have had the same impact. And being able to ask those questions, we've been able to do some really good things. So we actually rethought how we actually run our working week. So some of our staff work 5 days a week, or most of our staff work 5 days. There's some people that work 4 days a week, some as one person actually on 3 days a week, but we kind of shift and shape this around their working week. But this is for someone who's working 5 days a week. So the idea is Monday to Thursday is dedicated for actual production work. So they're working with clients, actually doing work from backlog, actually working with a client on that basis. And then Fridays are actually set aside for doing things. I'll break it down actually. So it allowed structured learning and development time. I'll talk about the L&D budget in a bit, but having structured time to be able to set aside and do learning and development has been amazing. Space to help others, you can actually have assistance. It's very difficult if you know that someone needs half a day of help. I've just removed half a day from my calendar. How do I get that back? This sort of time allows that. You can have the idea of us as an agency saying, oh, well, let's put 5 developers on a project to fix something. That's, normally that's quite a costly thing to do. Because this time is available and open, that's not a problem. We can actually do those sort of things and have group learning and those sort of things. That's something we're really trying to just get into now. And some of those challenges that come from actually, sometimes people need to actually ask for help, and the team in general is getting way better at that as well. So as a team, we're all changing and helping that sort of move forward and improve. Collaborative estimates. There's a real simple thing of estimating, what's the distance to London? If one person answers, they're going to give a number. If three people answer, you kind of might, someone might say 50 miles, someone might say 200 miles, someone might say 300 miles. If you're taking an average of those things, you actually get quite accurate results. So we kind of like to think about this in collaborative estimating. If a couple of people are estimating a task, you not only have more eyes, more experience, more brains on the actual estimating process, but you kind of have a clear idea of, if there's a clanger that's going to come out or something that's going to take longer than expected, you're more likely to see that. And again, as a team, we work on those and those collaborative estimates to really try and flesh out, make our estimates more accurate. And again, I know we're kind of freeing up that Friday to do all these things, but actually making those 4 days more focused for production means that if something comes up in the week, they can actually say, right, I can tackle this Friday. You're pushing something off. Obviously, if there's something super urgent, we need to think about that. But most of the time, we're kind of finding is most things that happen that just come up in people's calendars, they're not necessarily urgent. They could be tackled in a couple of days or maybe even the end of the week. It's more of a case of actually being able to have the tool to say, oh, I can sort this Friday because I've got the time to actually do it. And that's been incredibly powerful for the team. It also makes just tasks easier to schedule, to be honest, because if you need to spend 4 hours estimating a task, that means that's 4 hours not working with a client. I mean, it could be for that client in particular, which is also fine, but sometimes there needs to be research before estimating can happen. So just having that time available to schedule those things has been amazing for us. So we made that initial change again. That's again with help from our coach to kind of formulate how we're going to tackle that as a problem. But we need to basically keep improving. So some of the other things we've introduced, we've actually created a thank you budget. Again, myself or peers or anyone in the leadership team can say, well done, good work, whatever, but actually having the ability for an employee to thank someone for just something small, if they've helped them out on a particular task, if they've given a bit of time or resource to help them out, giving just something as simple as £50 a year just to buy someone coffee. It's just the idea of being able to do that within the team. So it's employee to employee, peer to peer has been great. And people are starting to use that as a real thing. So if someone helps someone, just getting something as simple as lunch bought for them or some beer delivered or whatever, just something small is great, and the team love that as a and not necessarily an incentive, but just as a real nice thing that can happen from peer to peer. We formalized our learning development budget. So we always had, we always said it had time for learning development, and we actually say, even as part of our recruitment process, we actually have 1.5 days a month of focused learning development to learn new things. There's no real requirements on learning development. It's just we do ask if something really valuable is learned, that they can share that in one of our development collabs and do a bit of actual a bit of a show and tell on something they've learned. And for us, that's really fueled curiosity and actually be able to tackle things that maybe day to day they're not necessarily thinking about. If it's a new bit of technology that they might not have the time to research, the idea of people just finishing work and then doing a load of research outside of work is not feasible nowadays, especially when you've got a team with childcare childcare challenges, especially with pandemic and schools being closed. A lot of that stuff, they need focused time to be able to really focus on those things. And actually having a learning development budget, actually having money to pay for software they want to learn, training materials, access to events online or physical, that's more of a formal thing. So for us, that's been great to formalize that, and everyone knows it's a process. No one's watching how that money's being spent. It's more of a case of it's there to use, so please use it. One of the other key things for us has been asking for help and actually getting actual professional experience to help us has also been super valuable. And as a business leader, that's a lot more easier to actually sort of formulate. If we need something doing, we kind of work it, we plan it, we pay for it. It's very easy. So getting coaching as a business leader is super simple, but as an employee, that's very rare to actually have. So we've actually started using this service called More Happy. It is for employees. It's, again, completely anonymous. It's one-to-one coaching. So it's not actually, it's not therapy or anything like that. It's actually coaching to help with, could be issues with work. It could actually nothing to do with issues. It could just be about how to improve. It could be how to make the next step in their careers. It could be anything like that. It's unlimited. And the important part is coaching is really about looking forward. It really is about how to improve yourself or tackling a particular problem, and giving access to that for employees has been felt really great. I mean, it's coaching and professional advice throughout our business life has been invaluable. So being able to give that back to our employees has been great. And the real important thing is people have started using this in the team. We've introduced this about 3-4 months ago, and now people are starting to use it and actually book sessions in. And the feedback from it has been amazing. It's been really, really good. And again, I really cannot stress how actually being able to have that sort of level of coaching, professional coaching for employees has been fantastic. So to get to that point and doing all those things, was it worth the effort? And was it actually, there was a lot of investment when it comes to time. Again, the money side of it is one thing, but the actual time and effort involved, was it worth that effort? And for me, I truly believe that tackling something like the pandemic and all the challenges that came with that, it would have been almost impossible if the team didn't have the company culture that we had and the ability to ask questions and give feedback and present problems if there were problems existing. That's why I truly believe it's just being able to, without listening and investing in the team and culture, it would have been very difficult to survive something like the pandemic or even just day-to-day challenges like working remotely. All those things have just thrown up different things, and even just growing. Businesses have growing pains, and growing from 2 to 17, without that company culture, it would have been incredibly difficult. So what are we doing next? We've done a whole bunch of stuff so far, but just going back to one of our values, change is good. We really like the idea of changing things and seeing what we can improve and how to keep going, really. We're actually going back to our one-to-one process again and improving it further. Going off feedback actually from the team, we want to make sure people are super clear about their roles and responsibilities and what they're expected to do and deliver on a day-to-day basis, especially when you're having people in the leadership team, being clear about who they're managing, how they manage, all that sort of stuff. We're going to make it all that a bit more formalized. And again, it's just reiterating the process we've kind of just been through. So improving the one-to-ones and just making that a more solid process. That's something we're actually really looking into the next couple of months. And probably by next year, we'll be really sort of fleshing that out. Also, just creating paths if there's more serious HR issues, having routes for professional assistance. That's another key thing. It's just giving routes for challenges, problems, and understanding that as a team, we don't necessarily have all the answers. Go back to More Happy as well. That's a real key part, that even if we were professional coaches, it might be challenging to talk about those things, and we might not have all the answers, all the techniques that are needed. So having external professional assistance is key. So yeah, as the team grows, it really is a challenge to just maintain company culture and make sure things aren't affected, even on a remote basis. We've also having different roles appear in our business. And for the first time, we're not just employing developers or designers. We've actually got a head of growth, for example. So what does that role mean to the business? How do they, how does that affect the company culture? How do they align? So there's loads of different challenges as the team grows. But as you add team members to that culture, there's certain members that can actually help the team culture grow and actually take maybe some of the ownership away from the business owners as well. So myself and Piers have always been there at the forefront trying to push this stuff forward, but actually having people in the team to help with that as a process is for us, has already been invaluable with the small team that we've got. Again, the real emphasis here is everything that's good that's happened to Atomic Smash has come from curiosity. It's us saying there's either an issue here, or we can look into how we do this, or can we improve that. Not holding back and realizing that change is good, and just stepping forward and actually just really trying to invest in those things has been invaluable to us. Thank you very much. Yeah, please follow me on Twitter or Instagram. The studio Atomic Smash is also there, at Atomic Smash or at Atomic Smash _studio. If you want to email me directly, not on a social platform, feel free to. If you have a particular questions, feel free to DM me directly on those, or email me directly. That's completely fine. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I can see. Okay, so a couple are coming in. Let me read them 1 second. Okay, got a good question. So how do you use the thank you budget? Oh, sorry. How does using the thank you budget work in practice for a team member? Oh, is there an easy way of doing this, or is it a little admin? So yeah, the thank you budget is one of our little tools inside Slack is called Donuts, and that allows you to actually say some of the things you like on a day-to-day basis. One of the challenging things is actually, I want to buy someone something, or buy someone a coffee or whatever, get some beer delivered, like I mentioned, and actually knowing if they like that stuff, that's kind of a challenge. So having a bit of a communication there is sometimes required. The actual process of allocating the thank you budget is, there's a card. We've got a business card which can be used for it. The only thing that needs to happen is a receipt needs to be sent to an email address. No one's monitoring that. No one's asking me for that process. We just literally just say, use this card, send this receipt to this email address. The only challenge there is just making sure you're getting something that's suitable for that person. The other way of getting around that is by using sites, I think it's called Yup, for example, that's lets you buy experiences or buy vouchers for experiences. So that's a really nice thing to have, which, someone can actually choose themselves. Vouchers are always really a nice way of tackling that if you're not 100% sure, or you're trying to buy something for someone you're not really working with day to day. Vouchers are invaluable for that sort of stuff. So when it comes to actually the nuts and bolts of how that works, it's pretty simple. They literally go and pay for whatever they need to, and they just send the receipts to an email address. That's kind of we all have automated receipt allocation for our accounting. So they just email their email address, and that's it. There's no approval or any sort of process. It's just there. Let me just check other questions. Okay, cool. So yeah, I've got one here. Well, you're already doing these kind of things, e.g. feedback and one-to-ones, and have just made them more structured. Yeah, so it really was just that sort of structured process. We're always kind of doing those things. They were very informal, and they were very much on an ad hoc basis. If we kind of felt that we just needed to update or chat with someone or work through, if we think they're having a problem or an issue, it would be more ad hoc. The real thing about having the structured time has been great for us. And knowing that will actually be just focused on that particular time has been the most important part. Not necessarily the questions that are asked will necessarily change straight away, but just knowing the fixed points in time there will be that structured, we're able to give that structured feedback was great. Part of the same question also, was everyone receptive to this more structured approach? I think everyone was. Yeah, for us, the real thing that we found is people have enjoyed being able to give feedback and actually be able to give feedback and see change happen. Office Vibe has allowed that sort of thing. If there's been a challenge or a problem, being able to identify that early and then see a problem has been amazing. And especially if that problem is one of those things I mentioned before, something that's challenging to actually talk about, being able to give this anonymous feedback and actually see change happen. We haven't had any pushback from anyone in the team about how we're doing our one-to-ones and how we've improved and made things more structured. So everything from our perspective has been pretty easy to roll out from a team perspective. So yeah, great question about how did you introduce coaching? How did the team get on board with it? So yeah, primarily with More Happy as sort of personal one-to-one coaching for our staff. The take up has been really, really good. So we did the actual nuts and bolts. We part of More Happy, you invite all your staff into the platform, and then it's up to them to schedule their first session. To actually get on board with the session is very simple. You don't actually need much. It's just a case of just turning up and being able to speak. That's the real key thing. The coach themselves ask the right questions. So as a barrier to entry and a threshold to entry to start that process, it was more about booking some time in the calendar. That could be in work. We're allowing that to happen. People can do this stuff in work or outside of work. It can be whenever they want. So the take up has been, we've had this for now 3 months. There's almost like half the team are on this now. And for us, we're not monitoring it that particularly closely. We want this stuff to be anonymous. We want this stuff to actually to feel natural. We don't want to force people to do it if they don't want to do it just yet, but we want to give them the opportunity to try it. And the only metric that we're kind of looking at is if no one's logged in or if someone hasn't logged in at all. That's something we might just nudge them to say, oh, have you thought about trying this? Is this something you're interested in? Apart from that, we just want it to be natural. I've had a couple of people that actually had repeat sessions, and like I said, it's unlimited. So actually being able to have recurring sessions is super easy and it's part of the platform. So yeah, it's been super valuable for us. And I think one of the things we're going to really work out is, like I said, only 3 or 4 months we've been using it. We're actually going to get some feedback about it as a process and see whether it's the right thing and see if there's anything else we need to do above and beyond that. But I wanted to let it settle and then maybe even use something like Office 5 to just collect some feedback about it as a process, anonymous feedback, just to see, because again, I'm kind of just guessing at that point. It's really good to get the right feedback and actually ask our employees. But from general consensus, we've had a couple of people on the team actually reach out to us and say it's been very valuable to them. So yeah, it's been great so far. We've had no one say they've had a bad experience or that they're not going to do it, for example. Cool. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, if you're I can just share these. Yeah, thank you. Feel free to share me, follow me on Instagram or Twitter. Also, if you want to just contact me directly, my email address is there. So if there's a question you have that you don't want to particularly ask now, feel free to contact me directly. Thank you very much.